Hey there guys, this is Obsidian Chill. Got another video for you today. And as you can see by the title, and if you've already been to the forums recently or on the DCO Twitter, we have something to talk about today. Lots changed since the last few days. So DCO tweeted out a surprise Thursday night with a live stream for Friday. And what the live stream entailed is that survival mode would be returning, or at least the new reimagined survival mode. So essentially, obviously, this is not what we were expecting. I know there's some people behind the scenes that were kind of, work on bringing it back, but I personally didn't think that it was going to go anywhere. I thought it was just going to kind of be like, table talk, under discussion. But it has, survival mode has returned in kind of a new form. Now we'll kind of briefly talk about, well, actually not briefly, we'll kind of go in depth about survival mode here, my thoughts, what to expect. What the setups are, pros, cons, everything. And in the background, this is basically just going to be clips of, it's on test server right now, survival mode. So we've basically been going through test. So you'll see clips of, I think this is going to be around 6 through 14 on test server. Basically just kind of clips of each round and what the bosses are going to kind of entail. So we'll kind of start off the front here. So as you can see by the clips, or if you've kind of paid attention to the forums, the major difference with this survival mode is that it's only 4 players. It's not anymore an 8-player SM, which is what we're used to. It's now 4 players. Now we can kind of go into that a bit first. Honestly, I don't have an issue with it. Well, it's actually kind of like a double-edged sword. I do have an issue with it, but I see where they're coming from at the same time, so I don't have an issue with it from that perspective. My issue is that with survival mode with 8 players, you have really good synergy. Like, yeah, it boils down to like how many tanks you can pull and stuff like that. But it's different role setups. 1 healer, 2 healer, 3 tanks, 4 tanks. You need the right group setups to be able to succeed in the higher rounds, or you go for more DPS. Like there's different setups, different power setups. Different powers that work better or put yourself in a better situation in certain rounds. Now with this alert. Or essentially like an alert, survival mode being 4-man, it's very limiting. Now currently there is a major, well, I would consider it a bug, but right now it's intended currently, but I think it's certainly going to be up for discussion, and that's kind of going to be the major sticking point of this SM. So basically, with it being a 4-man SM, it's treated basically as an alert. So with 4 players, you have the roll this buff this system, which means if you're missing a healer, if you're missing a healer, then you have healing over time as well as increased healing over time if you drop below 50% in block. If you don't have a controller, then you have extra passive power over time and power regen. And then if you don't have a tank, then it's basically just a defense buff, which you wouldn't run with a tank because you still need, because that defense buff is not enough to warrant aggro. So, or having increased survivability is just basically just some extra defense. So what this allows is that you essentially don't need a controller. It basically trivializes the controller role and also impacts the DPS setups as well. So what I mean by that is the most common setup you're going to see currently on test server, like our group included, for like 90% of the rounds, it's going to be 2 DPS, a heal, and a tank. I've seen setups where it's 3 DPS and a tank. I've seen there's even a round that you can get away with without a tank technically, and you could just run healer and 3 DPS and no tank. So basically, it's a variation of like that. So basically, the control role is basically eliminated currently. This is very early in stages. Obviously, survival mode just hit test. It's being reported. I've reached out to the developers about it as well. Right now, as it currently stands, their response is that, well, they're going to discuss it as the days follow, so I can kind of update you. But right now, logistically speaking, the issue is that they don't know how to turn it off, because essentially this survival mode is coded just as an alert. So 4 players, it's an alert. So the roll of buff system has to apply. Don't ask me why. I'm not a coder, but I would think it'd be easy enough to separate, saying survival mode rollless buff system equals X instead of Y or whatever. But I'm sure they'll look into that, because honestly, it's not it's tough because yes, you can have the roles boss system. It kind of gives more freedom and more flexibility in your setups, but at the same time, it completely trivializes the controller role. There's no point of running with a controller for 90% of the survival mode. Maybe in the higher rounds, but even in the higher rounds, you may not even need a controller. It depends on the group setup, like I said before. But it completely trivializes the controller, and it trivializes the might DPS role. If you're not running with a controller, power sets that are good at single target, like hard light, gadgets, celestial, they need a lot more power. They can't just like be self-sufficient in power. It's not going to work. When I'm parsing those power sets, I can't even last for 30 seconds on parsers, and you're expecting them to last like 15 minutes DPSing by themselves just on like supply drops and sodas. It's not going to happen. Or if it does happen, it's just going to be severely hindering them. So that basically boils down to Prec DPS, which is what you'll see here. This is the group that I'm running with as well. I should probably give them a shout out as well. It's Platts. I've run with them before. You've seen them on this channel. You can check them out. I'll link their channel as well. You can see some different highlights of the survival mode there as well. But they're a precision-based league, or the majority of them are precision. So the mostly setups you're going to see here are going to be power sufficient setups. So you have precision DPS, you have a healer, and you have the tank. Most tanks are pretty power efficient. I'm Ice. I think you'll see one clip of Rage. Atomic's not so much power sufficient. Earth is not really so much power sufficient unless you're using brick tanking, and I'm not too sure about brick tanking. I would have to try Earth. It should be fine, but at the same time, if in the survival mode, if brick dies on a boss, which I guess is possible, depending how much damage you're doing to brick. If brick dies, you're going to go poof. And in a 4-man SM, it's a lot harder to get a res on the tank because there's limited roles. In an 8-player setup, you could dedicate a tank to pickup duty, stuff like that, where you're going to get the res in a clutch situation. But if a tank goes down in a 4-player alert and the boss is out roaming around, if you can't kite him away, then you've got a quick second death, because the tank goes down, the next person on aggro dies, then you've got 2 people down, half the group is down, and it's just harder to get those multiple reses. So that's the issue there. And with a lot of these bosses are very counter heavy, so I guess we can kind of go into the boss as well. I'm going to kind of jump around in this kind of live commentary here, but it kind of gives, you'll see in the clips as well, but so essentially with the bosses, we've got round 1, which is Lex Luthor. We've got King Shark at round 2, Baron Savage at round 3, Johnny Quick at round 4, Vampire Lord at round 5, Black Manta at round 6, Deathstroke is round 7, Minotaur is round 8, Ultimate Soldier is round 9, and Ultraman is round 10. Now the survival mode rounds go up to 1 through 30. So that's another difference as well. The survival mode, we're used to just having 20 rounds. Now it's 30. Gives it an extra chance for scaling. So basically, it follows, at least so far, it follows the same style as the old SMs, where you have bosses 1 through 10, and then they repeat from 11 to 20. So it's the same thing. It's Lex Luthor is round 1. Lex Luthor is going to be round 11, which is what we're used to in the past. It's not randomized. Now that's saying I don't know what the bosses are going to be for 20 to 30. They could be randomized, or they could be the same thing, or they could be reversed order. I'm not sure yet. That hasn't been stated. But currently right now, the same boss you fight in round 2 is the same boss you're going to fight in round 12, what we're used to. The other thing as well is this is technically Season 1 of SM. They've already said the SM is going to last about a month. They haven't really clarified how long it's going to last. The MEP said about a month. It's on test server now. Usually things are on test for about 2 weeks, so it'll come out probably towards the end of May, starting in June, and we'll probably run the month of June. So basically that also entails, a big thing is the SM rewards. So once again, I'm kind of jumping points in this conversation, but so basically there's 2 reward vendors. One reward vendor has all the base items from the previous survival mode. So if you want like those Demon Head or the Foss items, the OA items, there's a separate vendor for that, which I'll go into another video, discussing the vendor rewards and such. But there's a vendor reward just for base items, and then there's a Season 1 reward vendor, and the Season 1 reward vendor is completely tied into this survival mode. So there's I think there's some new materials, There's like a new like a Miss of Eyes style. You know, like the there's a couple time capsule styles like the eyes. It's just like holographic. Then there's a whole bunch of trinket pets. I think there's 5 in altogether, the trinket pets. They're going to be tested in the following video after this, which is basically going to break down their damage. And I'll kind of briefly touch on the vendors as well. But just the highlights is that there's a whole bunch of rewards. The reason why there's a whole bunch of rewards is that they want to bring us... Well, I guess the major sticking point to the previous SMs was that, you know, what's the point of doing this? We get some pets at, like, you know, random rounds, random pets. The pets do nothing. So a lot of people, I was doing SM, and like-minded players like myself were doing SM for the rounds. Not so much for bragging rights, it was just to say we did it. Just we got there. Other people wanted the rewards. They wanted all the pets, which is fine. So this SM, they made a lot more rewards, similar to what we'd have in like a time capsule release or like an episode release. You know, think of it along those lines. So there's like 5 new trinkets. There's holographic pets for everything. So a whole slew of rewards that are going to cost a whole ton of marks that you can earn. And I guess I can touch on how the marks are earned. So basically, the marks are scaled for your rounds. Don't quote me exactly, but say for example, round 2 to 3 would get you 4 marks, and then round 12 to 13 would get you 15 marks. So it's something like that. It's like a scaling system where the lower rounds reward you less marks, and the higher rounds reward you more marks. The marks are pretty high for a lot of the items. I think the materials were like 200. The trinkets were like 60 or 100, stuff like that. So it is a fairly big mark sink. So it's not like you can just do 3 or 4 SM runs and then boom, you have enough marks to get everything. It's going to be very grind and replay badge heavy if you want all the rewards. There's no feats tied to them. It's basically all cosmetic items. But if you want those feats and those if you want those cosmetic items and those rewards, then you're going to have to pretty much grind it out and have multiple runs where. Like if you're not a very competent player, you're going to struggle here because you're going to have to farm, rounds 1 through 8 or 1 through 10 if you can make it to 10, a lot, because they're going to reward lower marks. So basically, you're going to have to do a whole bunch of like around 1 to 5. You're going to have to reset it multiple times because it's only going to get you like 4 or 5 marks, where other players could just keep resetting 15 to 20 and get the much higher marks. So it becomes an issue like that. The other thing as well is they changed the progress point system. Before, progress point round stopped at around, there's 11, was that 13? I can't remember, 13 or 15 I think it was. Could have been 15, where it stopped. But now progress points are every 3 rounds, so it's like 1, 3, 5, every other round, so 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15. And it kind of goes up from there. And I'm told that the progress points they used to reset weekly through the weekly resets, but they're supposed to be permanent for the entire length of the survival mode. That's not confirmed. That's just what I've heard. So I'm definitely kind of jumping around, and I'm sure if you don't remember what I said or have any questions, obviously leave them in the comment section. I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. But I'm kind of just off the top of my head. Thinking about what's going on here, because obviously there's a whole bunch of stuff to cover. So yeah, we touched on the marks, progress points, we touched on the max rounds, we touched on the bosses. Yeah, we can kind of go back to the rollers buff system, because I didn't really finish my thought there, because I'm jumping all over the place. Now, my issue is that with the rollers buff system, we don't have... It's just going to focus on too many. It's going to force precision players, and it's going to force rage or ice tanks, which are power efficient tanking. So because the group set is going to require, you can't have a bunch of might DPS and not have a troll, because you're going to struggle. So then if you have a troll, then you're taking a little bit longer. You could be end up dying because you don't have enough damage to clear a round. It just rounds taking 8 or 9 minutes with 2 DPS, a tank and a healer, could take like 17 or 18 minutes with 1 DPS. So there's higher chances for something to go wrong or a death to happen because the rounds are lasting twice as long. So that's the concern there with running a lot of setups, as well as with the rollerless buff system, it also eliminates, like, there's no point to having like, if your league mate is electric and is healing, and you're like a Sork DPS or a Celestial, there's no point of having a second healer power set in this game, or in this SM. If you want to get far in rounds, you're definitely going to need a second tank at some point. A solo tank is not going to be enough, so you're going to need 2 tank power sets. Obviously, you're going to have 1 healer power set, and then if you didn't have a troll, then yeah, that kind of opens up a bit more freedom. But without the rollerless buff, then you would need a troll. So it kind of, that's the one downside of this 4-man SM, is that it's limiting from the aspect where you don't have as much flexibility in roles because it's only 4 players. But at the same time, since it's only 4 players, you can have, you know, multiple groups running at the same time, multiple leagues, friends, whatever. It doesn't matter. Because it's only 4-man, you can have an easier chance of getting in rather than having to get an 8-man group. I guess we can also touch on the other type of rewards. So how this works in terms of endgame players or reaching the highest rounds. What they're going to do is that there's 3 extra styles where it's a bronze, silver, and gold crown. It's not so much like the king crown that's right there, that's the accessory. It's basically kind of like a golden halo concept. They showed it in live stream. It doesn't look that good, but you know, once again, it's not so much you're wearing it for the style, it's what it means behind the style. So the way they said that's going to work is that if you get round 28, if you're the only group 4-man group to get round 28, you get the golden halo. Now it's going to be, I'm assuming that's going to be separate for each server. I can't remember if they said that or not, but that would make sense. It's going to be US and EU server, and I'm assuming Xbox as well. That's going to be separate because they're separate altogether. So basically, if you're the only group to get that round 28, then you get the golden crown, and then everyone else will get silver, bronze, etc. But however, if you and like 6 other leagues all got to round 28, then you would share the golden crown. So just because it doesn't matter if you got there first. So if day 1 I get to round 28, and then someone else on the last day of the SM gets to round 28, you would still get the golden crown. So there's no, I think MEPS mentioned that they might be doing server first announcements, but they might not. Not that that really means that much anymore, because it's basically just, at this point, it's who goes in first. That's what server first will be going to, or at least for most of the rounds. But yeah, so basically, as long as everyone is all getting to the same end rank, like, you know, if like half the server gets to round 27, then half the server will get the gold crown, and then, you know, everyone else will get the silver and bronze. How they're deciding that is they're going through logs, I guess, just to double check, because obviously we have a speed hacker problem in the game. They said they're going to be checking all the logs to make sure that the players didn't speed hack to get there. Once again, I'm not sure how that's going to work logistically, but they said they're going to monitor it. But that's essentially it. So as long as once the survival mode finishes, they're going to go through the logs and determine, you know, who, you know, got the highest ranks or who got the furthest, and then they get the gold crown. They're going to individually mail the players that gold crown. It's not something you can buy. It's not something that's going to drop. It's something that you have to be given by the developers as a reward. So that's a nice touch as well. It's something better than a title, because obviously, you know, all the effort that went into us getting, you know, the world's first or the world's only survival mode round 20, that was CR scaled. We got a title that says Survivor, and that's it, a bigger pet, you know, and no one looking at the pet would ever know that it was from round 20. It's not like a Doomsday pet or anything like that. So obviously the rewards are quite lackluster for getting to the end or getting the highest rounds. They've always been. It's more just like for YouTube or headlines or whatever. But now there's a legit reward for that, so it's nice. The way they have set up the rewards for this survival mode is really positive. I'm still kind of on the fence about the 4-man. I can see its positives, I can see its negatives, but again, it's something different. Obviously, the majority of the game is not around since survival mode, or if the players are around since the last survival mode, they certainly weren't good. You know, they certainly weren't making it towards the end. They're like, if they've done survival mode, they'd be like, oh yeah, I did round 10 or round 11 or something. They have not gotten to the end rounds. There's, I could probably count in my head the number of players that are still in the game that have reached, you know, round 17 plus in SMs. There's not too many of them left. and obviously they're the minority. So it's a good thing to bring survival mode back, obviously, because it presents a challenge to the community, but at the same time, it's something new. It's a new concept, so that it's more presentable to the public. You know, because it said we're not trying to give a big 8-man group and make it a big grind fest like survival mode used to be. Now there's a whole bunch of rewards. It's 4-man, so it, you know, anyone can just queue up and do it. It's in the event tab, so we'll see it all plays out. Obviously, it's very positive that they're doing this again. There could be multiple seasons, season 2, season 3, season 4. Right now, there's 30 rounds, so it obviously gives you more players, endgame players, more to strive for, as it seems like a CR scaled. So as you can see, I think in round 13, the CR was like 354, and we're 270. So obviously, it's scaling CR like that. But yeah, it should be, it's very interesting. It's really positive. Right now, I can't say too much because obviously it just came out like 2 days ago. But so that's going to be more for updates. But right now, we should take, as much as it's changed and as much as it's not, because obviously, once again, this is the new meta too. We've never had a survival mode in stats revamp. We've always had it. It was only in AMs and CR scaled. So this is a new kind of, new kind of ground for us and for those players, because we're not sure what's going to be. We're not sure what to really expect with stats revamp in terms of survival mode. It could be great, could be bad, could be how the shield meta work. Obviously, precision and might imbalances are going to be very vocal. Like you're going to have, I don't want to speculate, but I would say at least 80% of the groups that make it to the higher rounds will have precision players currently, and it's no fault of them. It's just that precision obviously does max damage at max range and is max power conservative, where might DPS are definitely not. Some of the best might power sets, like take gadget single target, you have to be mid range for that, for a surprise attack to get the full potential out of it. Where precision has no such worries; it's just all max range. So we'll kind of wrap it up here. We've got all the clips in the background. Obviously, this is there's more to cover. There's more news to come out. Obviously, I'll be touching on the rewards and kind of feedback that comes up as we kind of go. The feedback is still in the early stages because it's just recently on test. So you can put whatever questions you have in the comment section. I'll kind of answer them as I can, like I said. But right now, it's certainly I'm staying positive. That's all I can do. As much as I would like an 8-player SM and like it the old way, but this is something new. It's obviously going to be a challenge, which is nice. It's just that if they can live up to the old hype that surrounded survival mode and do the old survival mode proud, and I guess we'll see how it plays out. So take care, guys, and stay tuned for the next videos.